Hi there. Thanks for clicking and welcome to my new office. So I'm trying a new format for this video today. I didn't write a script, I'm not reading from a teleprompter. Instead, I just have sort of a list of notes and we're going to do this more off the cuff and hopefully it'll feel a little bit more natural. So in regard to the subject we're talking about today, I absolutely had to make a video about this because it combines the topics of two other videos that I've done. Those two topics being Ralph Smart and New Age ideology and Ultimate Survivor Kaiji, the based anti-capitalist anime. You may notice that it's Squid Game that is in this title and not Kaiji, but the person who wrote Squid Game has openly admitted to have been highly inspired by Kaiji. And if you've seen Kaiji and if you've seen Squid Game, you'll see that there is a lot of overlap, and some plot points were directly borrowed from Kaiji. So even though this video is going to be breaking down a specific one of Ralph Smart's videos, I want to kind of think of this video as a microcosm for a lot, if not all, of his content. If you haven't already seen my video called The Problem with the New Age, I highly recommend that you check it out before watching this one, because it's going to give you a greater context for the critiques that I'm going to be making. But that said, I don't want you to have to watch a whole 30-minute video before you watch this one. So I just want to give, I guess, a little snippet of context of why we're talking about this. So Ralph Smart is a figure in the online New Age spirituality movement. He puts out basically daily videos that are usually around 20 minutes long. They're very repetitive, they usually say a lot of the same things, and I sort of situate him as like an internet New Age preacher. The reason I'm interested in Ralph Smart and his videos is because I think that he perpetuates a lot of problems within the New Age spirituality movement. Namely, he furthers conspiracy theories about COVID, about secret governments and stuff like that, and also because he perpetuates this idea that if somebody is able to reach a certain level of spiritual purity and think positive thoughts, then they can lift themselves out of even the most difficult situations, including poverty. And that's a lot of what my other New Age video talks about. So in this video, I not only want to unpack the ways that Ralph Smart misreads the show Squid Game, but the way that his rhetoric overall works. The way that he packages his messages and what that packaging is designed to do for his viewership. So before I dive into any of the specifics here, I just want to lay some groundwork in terms of the themes that we can see emerging in Ralph's videos. So I want us to keep an eye out for three things. The first theme is COVID and anti-vax conspiracy theories. I'm not going to say too much more about this now, but suffice it to say that Ralph, along with many other people in the New Age spirituality movement, have a lot of interesting ideas about COVID and where it came from and the reason why vaccines are being made mandatory. I don't want to turn this video into a conspiracy theory debunking video. I may do this in the future because Ralph Smart and Spirit Science around the same time both came out with videos specifically about the vaccine, and I'm interested in unpacking those videos. So I guess we'll shelve that for now, but just for now, I'll say I don't want to demonize any individual person who got sucked into the COVID and anti-vax conspiracy theories. I understand why it happens. I understand that people have really real reasons for distrusting the government and distrusting the medical establishment. But my stance is that we should use Occam's razor when it comes to COVID. I don't think that COVID was manufactured by the secret government in order to control the people. In fact, I think COVID very much hurt the American economy, and America worships its economy. So I don't really see any reason why at least our government would have contributed to the spread of COVID. In terms of the vaccine, the main theory that's out there about it, in the New Age circles at least, is that Bill Gates pushed the vaccine forward because he wanted to put a microchip in it so he could track people and, I don't know, something about the New World Order, I guess. I will say very quickly that the people who peddle this conspiracy theory reference a patent application that Bill Gates submitted that talks about patenting a software. I'm probably not using the right words, excuse my inaccurate wording, but patented some kind of software that can be embedded in the human body, some kind of microchip software, hardware, whatever, that tracks activity, but that patent was not completed by the time the vaccine came out. And also, the patent specifically mentions this technology being used for activity tracking, which is its own kind of dystopian, but there's no kind of mind control chip in the vaccine. That's my stance. Theme number 1, COVID and anti-vax conspiracy theories. Theme number 2 in Ralph Smart's videos, social media and control. So I'm not going to elaborate on this too much now. You'll see how it pans out in the video. The third theme is that Ralph proposes some kind of vague antidote to all of these problems involving co-creating a reality with other people. If this doesn't make much sense to you, great. We're on the same page. Part of what I'm arguing in this video is that Ralph and his points don't make a lot of sense. The things that he says don't come together into any kind of cohesive picture, and a lot of it sounds like nonsense if you're not already a part of the New Age movement and hearing these kinds of things from many different sources. So this is all to say, these are the themes that Ralph returns to, and while they don't make logical sense, they make a certain kind of emotional sense to his target audience, and I'll be exploring that further as we go through the video. So the other brief setup that I want to do before we dive in is to talk a little bit about Squid Game and the plot for anybody who hasn't seen it. I will warn you now that this video has some light spoilers about Squid Game, so if you're really sensitive to that sort of thing, maybe wait to watch this video until you've seen the show. So very broadly, Squid Game is about a guy with a lot of debt who is offered a chance to participate in a tournament that will, if he wins, let him pay off his debt and also make him rich. A ton of people sign up for these games who are all in similar positions, they're all in debt, and they quickly find out that the games that they have to play are murderous in nature. If they fail any of the challenges, they are shot dead on the spot, and the games get, increasingly competitive as the show goes on, and people are sort of compelled to betray one another in order to get ahead in the competition. So another important detail about Squid Game is that the games are run by rich people. Towards the end of the show, we see that there are a bunch of very rich men who pay good money to watch the games up close, and they bet on the contestants like horses, and this may sound familiar because a lot of this comes from Kaiji. So the theming in Squid Game is not as on point as it is in Kaiji. Kaiji lays it on really thick, it's quite heavy-handed, it's actually really hard to miss the point in my opinion. In Squid Game, it's a lot easier to miss the point, so I don't really entirely blame people for not getting the capitalism commentary in it. That said though, it is very much there. There's similar themes about giving up bodily autonomy for capital and people being sort of pushed into these less than ideal situations because it's preferable to being at the mercy of loan sharks and, not being able to pay for life. I have a lot of critiques about Squid Game and the way it's executed. I think that, it was a very entertaining show, but ultimately Kaiji was a lot better in terms of the theming. But that's a subject for another day. I just want to reinforce that the messaging behind Squid Game is not really debatable. It contains anti-capitalist commentary, for sure. And of course, the fact that Ralph misinterpreted it is not at all surprising, given his ideology as I explored in my last video. Actually, one more thing and then I promise we're going to get to the video. I just want to preface this by saying that my last video about Ralph was, I think at least, very even-handed. I tried my best to see things from all sides and be fair to him and kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. But this video, by its nature, I'm going to be a little bit sassier. I'm going to be a little bit more critical. I do want to put it out there that I have nothing against Ralph as a human being. I don't know what his intentions are. I don't know what goes on in his head. But I do think that the messages that he is putting out there are irresponsible at best and harmful at worst. So with that huge preamble, let's get into the video. So this is kind of petty, but I just want to point out that the opening to Ralph Smart's videos lately, is this dramatic swelling music over an image of the globe with his channel name on it, and you just saw it. Right from the get-go, this is a form of emotional priming, if not manipulation. I don't want to ascribe, again, intent behind what he's doing, but it is a type of priming. The use of this type of graphic with so much fanfare indicates that Ralph feels like what he's doing on his channel is super important and that he's delivering a really important message. I can't fault him for that. We all want to feel like what we're doing is important, but anybody who may be sort of vulnerable and susceptible to being taken in by other people's ideas, a person like that encountering this opening may find themselves primed for thinking that whatever Ralph says is going to be really poignant in some way. So right at the opening of the video, Ralph immediately launches into plugging his Instagram and telling his viewership to follow him, which is fine, not very interesting in and of itself, but I do think how he ends this little section is interesting.
Pull out your phone, deep divers. Add me right now on Instagram at Ralph Smart. Because after this video, I'm not sure if YouTube is still going to be around.
So what Ralph means here is that his video may get deleted by YouTube. It may get censored by YouTube. And him starting out the video like this further primes his audience for the conspiratorial thinking that he's going to be engaging in. If Ralph's video gets taken down, it's not because he's spreading dangerous disinformation, but because he's being censored and because they don't want you to know the truth. After some of his signature catchphrases,
woo! Breathing in that good ass prana, baby.
Ralph dives into the meat of the video.
Squid Game. Let's talk about it. This huge global Netflix hit. This is not a review. This is the real event. Like, life is becoming Squid Game.
So after this point, Ralph accurately describes the plot of Squid Game. So at least we know that he actually watched it, or at least he internalized an accurate plot summary. But then things start to go south.
And it is really the story of what's happening right now in the world. It's a Squid Game. Now, when I actually saw an interview with the director, he actually said, we are living in a Squid Game world. And I'm gonna dive deep into this and tell you why we're living in the Squid Game world. This is not a review. This is not a review. This is the real event. In the words of Ralph Smart, we live in a world so fake, the truth actually scares people. Slow motion this side. And we ain't even had breakfast yet. Can I get a hello there?
We got a 2-for-1 with those catchphrases there. So there's a lot to unpack here. The first thing that jumps out to me is his visual language, which points towards the first theme that we're tracking, which is the COVID conspiracy and the anti-vax conspiracy. So as he's talking, he's describing Squid Game. We see a person wearing a mask. It says COVID-19 on it. We see somebody else with another mask, and there's a graphic, and it says Green Pass. If you don't know, the Green Pass refers to, it's basically a vaccine pass that I think is being used in Europe. I had to look up what it was because I'm an American and I didn't know. So ultimately, Ralph is invoking this huge world event in order to further his own interpretation of reality. He wants to communicate to his audience that we're living in very pivotal times, and that if they listen to him, then he can sort of lead them into this better version of the world. He refers to himself and his viewers in other videos, I don't think he says it in this video, as the chosen ones. And he never really specifically talks about what they're gonna do, but the idea is that they're going to somehow spiritually transcend the hardships of Earth if they can use the law of attraction hard enough or something like that. So I do agree with Ralph that we are living in pivotal times, but where we disagree is that I don't think the law of attraction is going to fix the problems that we face. Thinking positive thoughts is not going to keep Black people from being shot in the street. It's not going to keep people from starving to death. It's not going to keep people from losing their homes. It's not going to keep housing prices from going up continuously, etc., etc. It's also not going to stop people from catching COVID, especially if they are unvaccinated.
But a funny thing happens is that as the series goes on, one of them votes to say, actually, let's leave. And when they do, they realize that life on the outside is not much different, because this South Korean series takes place in this remote private environment. So they actually willingly want to come back to the Squid Game. So when I was watching this as a psychologist, I'm realizing that we are living in a Squid Game right now, in this global pandemic, this new world order, this 1984 Orwellian state. Now, there are themes we got to go over.
I won't spend too long talking about this, but obviously in this section, Ralph misses the point of the whole arc in Squid Game, where the people vote to leave the game and then end up coming back anyway. So he's connecting this to social control and social media. He's kind of throwing out all these buzzwords, but the reality of what happened in the show is that these people were faced with their deaths and they were like, I don't want to die, I want to go back to my life. So they went back to their lives, and then they remembered how shitty their lives were because they were broke and in debt. And they realized that actually fighting a battle to the death, battle royale style, was preferable to just staying in their lives with no capital. And that's what's messed up. So in Ralph's next point, he spends some time demonizing social media, and especially TikTok. I'm going to play a bit of this section. He goes on for quite a while, so I think I'm going to speed him up a bit and probably cut out a lot of his long pauses.
But first and foremost, when I look at TikTok deep divers, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the Squid Game of our generation. Like I told you, social media is not real life. It's part of the illusion, part of the Squid Game. Jin Kid, this famous TikToker, he actually killed his girlfriend, his wife, right? Because she wanted to divorce him. And he actually killed another guy. This is real life. Now, on one of her videos on TikTok, she's actually dancing with him and saying this is a beautiful relationship. But that's the TikTok reality. Behind the scenes, there was something going on. She wanted to put a restraining order on him. So a lot of what you see on TikTok, on social media, is not real life. What's going on behind the scenes is totally different. And that's why I told you, be careful of these games that they give you. TikTok, Facebook, which is now Meta, right? Because a lot of people get sucked into the illusion. They become these characters. Me, I've been real since day one.
Okay, so here we see theme number 2 emerging, which is social media and social control. What's so interesting about this to me is that I don't see a logical connection between these points and Squid Game. So I feel like in order to understand why Ralph is bringing this up, we have to look at this from an emotional perspective. Actually, the same could be said about the COVID stuff. I just got so fired up about it that I forgot to talk about this. When Ralph's talking about social media and fakeness, what is it that he's invoking? Let's think about who his audience is. His audience are people who have experienced spiritual awakenings. I think other folks who would debunk somebody like Ralph might make fun of this concept, but I do not plan to make fun of it. I respect that people experience spiritual awakenings, and I think it's sad that their options when exploring their spirituality are either organized religions that can be very toxic in a lot of ways and very dogmatic, or going into this sort of nebulous spiritual space of New Age spirituality and potentially getting taken in by a guru. So let's think about the type of person who has felt they've experienced a spiritual awakening. What that might mean for them is they're kind of seeing through a lot of bullshit in the world. And let's be clear, there is a lot of bullshit in the world, and a lot of the stuff that Ralph's talking about is actually bullshit. Sometimes he looks in the wrong places, but ultimately, there is stuff to be suspicious about, and there are paradigms that need to be knocked down. So these people who feel they've awakened spiritually, they're trying to come into their authenticity, and they are encountering social media and people presenting these fake images of themselves online. Ultimately, what Ralph is advocating for is unplugging from that and unplugging from comparison culture, which I don't think is a bad message. It's just that whenever he talks about social media, he does it in this very conspiratorial way. Like, social media is a tool of the people who are in control to keep us complacent. And yeah, that's just a little conspiratorial for me. And we'll get back to the people in control later. It's coming, don't worry. So I guess backtracking a little bit to talk about the emotional perspective of COVID, something that I've noticed about a lot of people who have recently had spiritual awakenings is that they can have the tendency to be a little high or manic on this sort of newfound dimension of reality that they're tapping into. And what this can sometimes lead to is thinking that there is a spiritual solution for every source of discomfort. I think it's fair to say that COVID has been a huge source of discomfort for basically everybody. And wouldn't it be nice if there was somebody telling you in your language that if you just don't be afraid, and if you just think positive thoughts, then you won't have to wear a mask or obey social distancing laws or anything like that. So Ralph's conspiratorial approach to COVID is very appealing to his audience who wants a quick solution, a quick spiritual solution for these major obstacles in their lives.
Now, Squid Game, this is not a review. This is the real event. We are living in the Squid Game world. Let me tell you this. In Squid Game, you have these controllers, right? People who are conducting these games, the experimenters. So just like in today's world with this global pandemic, you got the Faucis, the Bill Gates, you've got controllers, people who are controlling this game, these illusions. They're keeping this matrix going. And we got to remind ourselves that from the moment you were born, they said, hey, you can sign here for the Squid Game or for the Matrix or for this reality. And they said, just sign up. But they didn't tell you to read the small print. They didn't tell you that most people are selling their soul when they sign up to be a part of this society. They didn't tell you that you're going to be force-fed his story, it's not yours. That's why it's called his story. They didn't tell you that school is going to brainwash you and make you believe a certain narrative about the world, which isn't true. So many people, without even knowing, they have enrolled in the Squid Game or in the Matrix in real life from the moment you were born.
So here we get a classic instance of Ralph mentioning the Matrix, and for bonus points, he talks about Fauci and Bill Gates. Not everything that Ralph says here is off the mark. He actually says a couple things I agree with. We are fed incomplete and twisted historical narratives, and a lot of this indoctrination does happen within the school system. The narratives we're fed are designed to keep us complacent, to instill and reinforce the myth of meritocracy, and to keep power consolidated in the same hands. But Ralph's critiques are not grounded or specific enough, and he himself believes in the myth of meritocracy, or at least a version of it that's dressed up in a spiritual guise. Again, I want to go back to talking about how this may make emotional sense to Ralph's viewers. I think a lot of people feel really disenfranchised right now, and for good reason. There are so many people who have passions that they literally do not have time or energy for because they're forced to labor under capitalism and work for money. It's natural that people who have a spiritual orientation and are feeling disenfranchised in this way are going to resonate with a message in a spiritual guise that proposes some kind of solution to the disenfranchisement they feel. And it also suggests that just with the power of their mind and their will, they're able to rise above those circumstances. When Ralph speaks about the indoctrination and the programming that we all receive, he's not wrong about that, but like I said, he doesn't get specific enough about it, so his audience can just kind of make what they will of those comments.
Now, many people, just like in the Squid Game, become aware of the illusion that money is the illusion, the red carpet is the illusion. Everything society promises you is the illusion. However, people still, just like in the Squid Game, they willingly go on with it because they think, hey, this is the only way I can make it out. because you still believe that there's something to be won.
Now this sounds nice, and to be clear, money is fake, but what Ralph doesn't acknowledge here is that the system is something that most people cannot actually choose to opt out of. In the world that we live in as of now, people need money to survive. The characters in Squid Game don't have any money. In fact, they have negative money, and because of this, they face dire consequences. So when Ralph says that money is an illusion, I find that pretty insulting. I also find it directly in conflict with the details of Squid Game. Just to give you a quick example, in the second episode, which is the episode where all of the characters decide to vote themselves out of the competition and go home, we find out that the main character's mother has very severe untreated diabetes. She's in really big trouble, and the doctor tells Gi-hun that if she's not treated, she's going to die. He begs her to accept the treatment, but she ends up running away from the hospital because she doesn't have health insurance, and because of that, she cannot afford the hospital bills. So, the show clearly demonstrates that it's not just in the Squid Game that money is a matter of life and death. It's just more sudden, shocking, and violent in the arena.
So, just like in the Squid Game, there's a hidden hand controlling everything. It's the same thing that's happening in the real world. There's a hidden hand. Some people call them, like Ralph Smart, the inorganic ones. These entities are the hidden hand who have been controlling humanity for thousands of years, deceiving humanity into the Squid Game.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This is not the first video where Ralph references the inorganic ones who, according to him, are secretly controlling the world. I'll make the same argument I did in my other video, which is that the people controlling the world are not doing so secretly, it's actually right there out in the open. The folks who control things are the ultra-rich. Their money translates into influence, and therefore, they can shape policy to continue to benefit their class. Their money also means that they can continue to destroy the environment with endless production and still be able to afford escaping into space or building underground bunkers so they can survive. What's really interesting for me to think about, though, is how it serves Ralph to think that the people who are in control are actually inhuman and inorganic ones. These people are indeed ghouls who lack compassion in a way that maybe makes them inhuman, but Occam's razor dictates that they're probably just like regular people who suck. By calling these ghouls the inorganic ones, Ralph is distancing himself and his audience from these people in a way that is very extreme and final. Therefore, the problem is not accruing capital, but rather being an alien. The problem is not endless greed, but rather lizard people. Which, by the way, I didn't know this until recently because I am extremely innocent and I don't pick up on these things, but some of my commenters on my last New Age video pointed out that a lot of this, like, lizard people, inorganic one stuff is actually anti-Semitic dog whistling, which makes this extra gross. I don't actually know if people like Ralph Smart and the guy behind Spirit Science know about this connection, but in saying these things, they are perpetuating something that started off as an anti-Semitic dog whistle. The other appeal of referring to these people as the inorganic ones is it's setting up the problems that we face as something that calls for spiritual warfare, which is something that Ralph can speak to, and something a lot more interesting and exciting than the real solution, which is either activism that leads to gradual change or revolution, which is scary.
But also, the Squid Game, the theme, how it relates to the real world, is about the social credit score, which is already in China. The social credit score system, if you don't do what the government wants, they can take away points. So people have this social credit score, just like in the Squid Games. Just like in the Squid Games, if you don't do what they want, you are eliminated. And the reason why they're there is because they have this debt based on their social credit score. And everything right now, what's happening with this global pandemic is moving the world into a social credit score. It's moving the West into a social credit score, We're seeing it with the green pass. In Italy, you can see what's happening all over Europe. Italy, France, Germany.
So when Ralph first mentioned the social credit score, I was entirely befuddled. I couldn't see any connection between the idea of social credit score and Squid Game. But once he connected it to the green pass, then it made a little bit more sense. There is no connection between Squid Game and social credit score. Later on in the video, I believe, he talks about how the characters in Squid Game have a low social credit score and that's why they're in the Squid Game. That's not true. It's because they have no money. Money is not social credit. They cannot be equated. But it benefits Ralph in his argument to set up this comparison because part of his rhetoric around COVID and the vaccines is talking about how the vaccines are dividing people further, how the government is pitting vaccinated people against unvaccinated people, and how we all just need to come together. And like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into the COVID stuff in this video. I'm going to address that elsewhere. But yeah, we can see the rhetoric that's at play here. But again, this is another example of how he's bringing up things that don't actually make sense to compare to Squid Game, but to his audience, these things will feel emotionally correct. Presumably, a huge portion of his audience are unvaccinated, so when they hear him say these things, they feel validated because they've been feeling shunned by, I guess, society at large, by parts of their greater community, and they don't want to feel ostracized. So when Ralph says that the vaccines are dividing people, they're ready to buy in. I'm not going to play this clip, but at this point in the video, Ralph references 1984 again. He did it earlier and he's doing it again now. So to be clear, we do live in a surveillance state. We have very little privacy online. The government can and does use this to protect the status quo. But it's far more common that our data is being sold to corporations in order to serve us targeted ads and extract more capital from us.
So, art imitates life. When you remind yourself, they're not just showing you these Netflix series for your entertainment. This is part of the subliminal programming. Also the predictive programming. So they show you something. They show you what the world is turning into. Now, I'm here to help you keep your spirits high. The only way out of this Squid Game, this matrix, is in. Many people are signing up for the Squid Game, this artificial reality, this TikTok generation, not realizing that there are consequences. It comes at a risk that you may not be aware of. And this is why anytime I'm on social media, I'm only here to give you that wisdom, that knowledge. I live in nature every single day, deep divers, raising the frequency. But just like in the Squid Game, they want you divided. If you notice in the Squid Game, people are isolated. Just like in this global pandemic, they call it social distancing. How can you be social and distant at the same time? They're tricking you with the words. That's an oxymoron, social distance. So ultimately, they want you to be isolated in a Squid Game world. And therefore, the way out of the Squid Game is unity. The way out of this matrix, Squid Game, is unity. We all have to come together because in the Squid Game, it's all about who can win, not who can collaborate together. Slow motion this side. I said it's all about winning the prize, not about how can we collaborate together.
First of all, not to be petty, but if Netflix shows are subliminal programming and Squid Game is real life, why would Netflix have put Squid Game out there exactly? So that aside, once again, we see Ralph just missing the point here. Solidarity among average people may absolutely be the cure to many societal ills, but COVID regulations are not keeping people divided. Where I live at least, things have pretty much gone back to normal, even despite all of the Delta variant cases. Once again, Ralph is selling a lofty image of unity without actually spelling out what that would look like or what it would achieve.
We have all been sold a lie. From the moment you were born, You were told what this world is, but it's not the truth of what it really is. You were told that because someone has more money, they're better. Or you were told to believe that it's just about waking up so you can make lots of money. And that's why most people die at 18 and don't get buried until 75, because they're caught up in the Squid Game. What? Slow motion this side. One of the themes in the Squid Game was get rich or die trying. So even though they knew that they're going to die in this child's play, this children's game, red light, green light, they still went on because they now had the mentality, hey, it's get rich or die trying. Now, if we take that into the real world, what's happening with so many people? They have this mentality, get rich or die trying. People are literally killing themselves every single day just to fit into this matrix. Not me, because I was rich before I came here. Realizing I create reality. I'm a co-creator of my own reality.
So the central idea in this section is that we are supposedly sold the lie, and that the lie is that if somebody has more money, they're better. So we've already covered part of this. I'm here for all the anti-materialism, but Ralph's comments are ignoring the fact that many people are not actually killing themselves to get rich. They're killing themselves to get by. Housing prices are on the rise everywhere, and wages have been largely stagnant. Also, just looking at the details of the show, Gi-hun does not actually want to get rich. He just wants to survive. He tries to forfeit the prize money multiple times, and he doesn't touch it for an entire year after he wins the games. This part of the video also exposes some of Ralph's hypocrisy. He professes that he is not of this mindset, he doesn't think that money makes you better, and he's supposedly so anti-materialist, but meanwhile, he has other videos about how he has multiple streams of income, he gives his viewers advice on how to make money, and also, he's freely admitted in other videos that he's able to live the life that he lives because he's financially successful. He has the financial freedom to live his life the way that he wants. So if money actually isn't important, how could Ralph have gotten to where he is? Not to mention, at the end of every video, he shills his merch.
They're dividing people right now on the planet between those who have been vaccinated and the unvaccinated. I told you, they have this term called COVIDiots. This is the introduction into the Squid Game real world. Because they are treating unvaccinated people like second-class citizens. And if it goes on without you saying anything, you will be living in a real-life Squid Game. So therefore, we got to remind ourselves to not be divided, because the controllers, the inorganic ones, see you all as the same. Whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, to them you're just cattle. Just like in the Squid Game, the controllers saw everyone the same. They see you as children. And that's why they give you these children games, TikTok, all of these things, to entertain you, to distract you from what's really going on. This is a battle for the hearts and minds of the people, what's happening right now on the planet. And it's time to wake up. It's time to be free. Repeat after me. My choice. My choice. Wait a minute. My body. Say it louder. My body. My body. My choice. My choice. My freedom. My freedom. Choose to be free. Choose to let love guide you, not fear. Choose not just to do anything for some money. Choose to have integrity. I don't work for money because I'm already wealthy. Let me repeat that. I said, I don't work for money because I'm already wealthy.
Good for you, Ralph. And I really mean that. I'm glad that you don't have to labor miserably under capitalism in order to live. I'm so thrilled on your behalf that you've gotten to a place in your life where you can do what you want to do when you want to do it and not have to worry about where your next meal's coming from or how you're going to pay your rent. I want that for everybody. What's not going to help us get there is misreading anti-capitalist commentary as some sort of vague gesture towards how we need to wake up and stop giving our control over to the inorganic ones. The other salient thing that Ralph says in this section is he's referring to the idea that in order to escape this miserable system, what we have to do is become co-creators of our own reality. Now, I don't disagree with that in principle. I think it's good that Ralph wants to empower his audience, but I think that speaking in vague terms like this is not very helpful, and all it does is sort of sell this feel-good, empty, motivational nonsense. I'm a terminal optimist. I think that what's going to save the world is people who have compassion and care for one another coming together and co-creating a reality in which we take care of each other and the planet. But Ralph's suggestions for that amount to little more than gestures towards coming together, whatever that means, and transcending to 5D, whatever that means. That pretty much takes us to the end of Ralph's video. After this, it's just a bunch of social media plugging. I want to be super clear that I don't think there's anything wrong with being spiritual. I am not an atheist, as I've said before. I feel a connection to something greater than myself, and for me, that's the spirit of the earth. I think it's healthy to want to seek out transcendent experiences. I think it's healthy to view morality through a spiritual lens if you are that type of person, and as long as you are coming to these conclusions yourself and not being led by dogma. What I don't think is okay is saying a bunch of vaguely inspirational statements, connecting a bunch of dots that don't exist, and using a television show that's currently popular to further the same conspiratorial messages that you've been preaching for the past year and a half. Ralph Smart really frustrates me, so thank you for listening to my long rant about the specifics of how he frustrates me. I also want to reiterate, I've probably said this before, but if you're somebody who's been taken in by Ralph Smart or somebody like him, I don't blame you whatsoever for that. I don't think that you should have any shame about that. I'm not judging you for that. I don't want anyone in the comment section to judge you for that. It could happen to anybody. I've been taken in by stuff like this before, and this is exactly why I'm making this content, because I think it's important to be critical and to have critical thinking, even when we are spending our time in spaces that are very metaphysically oriented and very esoteric. We can still think of things critically, even when we are engaging with esoteric information and subjects. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. I definitely plan to do more videos like this in the future. Please, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments and tell me what other specific things you would like to see me do. Like I said before, I am definitely going to be talking about spirit science sometime soon. I think talking about spirit science and Ralph Smart jointly when it comes to the COVID stuff makes a lot of sense. I'd also like to make a video about Teal Swan. She's a very controversial figure. A lot of people really love her. A lot of people really hate her. I'm going to try to come to some kind of middle ground conclusion about her and be fair. Yeah, so again, thank you. If you like my content and you want to support me, a great way to do that is by joining my Patreon. It's still fairly new. I don't have all of the perks sorted out yet, but I am a graduate student right now. I am struggling with money, and if you want to help me not have to give up my time to a wage job and keep making videos, Patreon's a great way to do that. I want to give a huge thanks to my current patrons, who I appreciate so much. The fact that a handful of people believe in me enough to give me some of their hard-earned money every month means the world to me. Those people are Jason B, Veronica B, Eva P, Justin C, Abigail P, Snow Diana Judith, and Chris E. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Or what would you do for a Klondike bar? Or what would you do for a Klondike bar? Don't do anything.